Time to stop looking at the skeleton and start lowering the volume of this music. And move the window in the wrong spot so I can't access the volume. There we go. Oh, it's fading out. I can't properly do this. Song, come back. Song, come back so I can properly level you. There we go. That's a volume. There we go. How's that? Does that sound good? Every day is a spooky day if you follow your dreams. That's true. That's very true. Follow your spooky dreams. And if you don't have spooky dreams, I guess follow your non-spooky dreams, but like, especially if they're spooky dreams. How you doing, Deebs? Hello, Stick Shift. How are you doing? I have my question right here, but I think I'm gonna optimize. Hey, Discordia, how are you doing? Penta, damn, Rose. How diddly doodly the streamer Rooney. How diddly doodly do you too? If I add text, can I do this? I think I can do this. I'm just going to copy this first part of the question. And do that. Oh, yep, that's exactly the size I want it to be. I can put it in the Sunday font so it'll match everything else. Okay, A. Let's get this down to a reasonable size. Oh. Shoot. B. Let's get it on the right window. I want to add text that I accidentally added to the wait screen. There we go. Now take this off of the wait screen. This is gonna take a while. Oh boy. Okay, select font. Yeah, I don't need it to be size 256. How about 18? Okay, let's go a little higher than that. How about like 72? Now we're getting somewhere. We're moving somewhere now. Hey, it's Honey Bunny and people with Honey Bunny. How are you all doing? Honey Money, I was thoroughly enjoying watching you play Hooked on You. Hooked on Me? I forget what the game is called now. That was really fun. I was enjoying that. Ooh. RGB Blight just subscribed. Has been subscribed for 18 months. Hot diggity dog. Thank you, Blight. And says, never know what to say. Well, I think you say so many great things that it's okay to be speechless right now. I'm not speechless. I say thank you. Thank you. Now I gotta catch up on chat. Discordia said, I'm actually pondering making a character for Shadowrun who's not a great fighter, but knows a lot about support magic. Oh, perfect. You'll have some really great suggestions then, and we can bounce ideas off each other, Discordia, because that's a big topic of today. Let's try 255. Yeah, perfect. Thanks. I'm bad at doing voices. Thought I heard something wild. Okay. I think bad at doing voices. I'm having fun trying. It's surprisingly hard. It is surprisingly hard. But it is very fun, and I enjoyed listening to you do voices. I think one of the fun things about voices is that you don't have to be like a pro level, like, oh, I get paid for this, I know all the tricks, to just, you know, read off some words and make it sound enjoyable. And I found it very enjoyable, so I say good job to you. Not that voice act is easy, but I think my brain is used to switching voices like that. Oh yeah, switching voices makes a big deal. It's hard as a GM. That's the thing I have to do too, is like be like, oh, you're talking to this character, and then you gotta talk to someone with an accent, and it's like, oh, ahoy matey. Like, it is very hard to do that switch. So I agree with you. Found a neat spell called Ice Over, which creates difficult terrain, 5 successive turns, turns stairs into ski slopes. That's awesome. This girl's trying to break into your house. No, I thought I heard like shouting, but I did not. I don't know what it was. Thanks, you are very welcome. My blinds are closed, so if I am being, if my garden is being raided by squirrels, I wouldn't know it. I might be dumping my non-fruiting plants soon, because we might be moving hopefully soon. Haven't said anything, because it's still like, ooh, papers gotta get signed, but things are moving forward in a good way in that way, so that's good. Or they will all collapse. Who knows? We'll find out. Squirrels having a row. Oh, I still have this text up here. Hang on. What am I doing? I need to go into properties, and then I need to move this kind of where I want it to go. Like here. I figure I could put the question right there that we're answering. And then also the little thing that shows if you want to submit a question, how to do that. Okay, so I need all sorts of different text font size here. Let's 48. That's still probably too big. It's called Ice Sheet. Nice. I love, there was one in the Monty Cook game, Arcana, Unearthed Arcana, not Uncana Unearthed. Different thing. D20 though. And called Muddy Ground, where it was similar, where you turned a spot of ground to difficult terrain that was muddy, and like halved your speed if you touched any square of it. Stuff like that, super effective. Pairs great with wall spells. They could be like, I made this muddy ground. I blocked off this. Have fun walking through it. Spell for reshaping matter, creating doors and walls. Ooh, that's super useful. Hang on. We gotta write some of this down. I'm writing some of this down because we're going to talk about this. This is great. This is still too big. It's too much. It's too much. That looks legible. Like you can read that, right? If I stay here, nope, that's God, I don't have enough screen real estate for this. I'm trying to do this on there we go. Also, I don't know if Pogson is here, but I did add a skeleton with a trumpet right here upon request. There we go. Look at that. We have the question. Check that out. Yeah, Shadow 5 has 5 branches of magic: combat, detection, health, illusion, and manipulation. Manipulation is one which handles changing the environment. That makes sense. You're manipulating the environment. I like it. All right, before I forget, let me go to wait and then remove this from that screen. There we go. And it didn't delete it from this screen. Oh my gosh, I know how to OBS sometimes. Look at that. I'm surprised there's a specific spell for making muddy ground. I thought that transmute rock or mud spell already existed on purpose. It is not D&D. And it was 3.5, and the book was Monty Cook was one of the co-creators of third edition when he worked at Wizards of the Coast, and then he started his own company, Monty Cook Games, and one of his earlier products was a D20 game, because of the OGL, the Open Gaming License with D20, called Arcana Evolved, and actually I think it was called Unearthed Arcana, and they did 3.5 version, which is called Arcana Evolved and had more stuff. And dude made the whole rule book. Like, you didn't need it. Ran on the D20 system, but it did not need the player's handbook or the DMG to run, because it was all in that book. And so he made his own 0 through 9th level spells for it, and it was wild, and there was some really cool stuff in there. I mean, I'm sure he hired some other people to write too, but there was some really, really fun spells. It's also in that system where sprites, like size tiny sprites, were a folk you could play as a character, and they were really cool. I played one. It was super fun. Yeah, I saw this version of World of Darkness. Yeah. Oh, that's why it's called Unearthed Arcane. Was first edition D&D. Yeah, and there's like a bunch of Unearthed Arcane stuff for like 5th and whatnot. Or Unearthed Arcana. Why that name was chosen for his book, no idea. But the like more complete version is called Arcana Evolved. If you like D20 stuff, it's fun. It's good stuff. All right. It's hot. I gotta turn that AC up just a tick. I made it too low. Oh, now it kicks on. Oh, heard me. Like you said, you needed some AC, huh? Let me help you. All right. So if you put in, nope, I gotta type it right. That in the chat, it gives you a link to the Google thing, and this is where I'm gonna be pulling the questions from today because I have some backlogged on there from a while ago, including this one. And I love this question because it's a thing that I do not all the time. I do it a lot. Is I love making characters that don't do combat because there's so much more to games than combat, but it's very system dependent, and we're going to get into that as well. So here's the question. Let me move this. There we go. The question sent anonymously to me was, do you have any suggestions for how to handle combat where, for whatever reason, one player can't meaningfully participate? Imagine that Luke, Han, and Leia were PCs in Star Wars Episode 4. During the scene, they were fleeing the Death Star. There was an exciting space battle in which Leia doesn't participate at all. There are shots of her reacting or looking nervous, which contribute to the tone of the scene. But imagining it from PC's perspective, it seems like she wouldn't have anything to do in the battle. Do you have any suggestions for how to keep such a player engaged? It's a solid question. It's a very solid. I'm not familiar with this scene. I've seen Star Wars. I barely remember this. If this didn't happen in Star Wars, I would just be like, oh, okay. I thought I remembered it, but I guess I'm wrong. Like, that's how unfamiliar I am with this scene. I think it did happen. I remember like snippets of this. I don't remember if it really happened or not. So a thing in this exact scenario of just doing like reactions and stuff, I feel like there's no way to make that fun. If someone can make that fun, I would listen to it, but I don't have any suggestions on that. But there are things you can do outside of combat, or you can do in combat outside of fighting to make it more fun. Also, I would love to hear from all of you all. I know Discordia, you already put some stuff down about if you have any experience in this as the player, as another player, or as the GM dealing with someone like this, or dealing with a situation like this, or being the person who's doing this, because I love doing it. So I think one of the main things is what do you want to do? Like, if you don't want to do combat, that's okay. But I think you need to be very clear for both you and the GM and everybody else is, what do you want to do? I adjusted this incorrectly somehow. There we go. Because if you don't want to do combat, that's fine. But if it's like you just want to sit out during combat, or you just want to look around, or you just want to find clues, make that known and know what you want. I know that's a thing some people like that I've played with, where they just combat starts and they don't want to fight, and they want to, their goal in the game is to find clues. So how can they do that in combat? For them, how can they think about it and incorporate that into their character's actions? And as a GM, how can you provide things within the combat scenario for them to interact with in that way? All right, now time to catch up on chat. Deeb says, thinking on things to do to keep players involved in a combat where their character's abilities aren't contributing much to the fight. I like to design combat arenas that have a bunch of environmental factors that can give the rest of the team some sort of advantage or the bad guy disadvantage. 100% agree. One of my notes on here. I'll write it down right now. I love environmental factors. They're so great. Shrappy? Am I saying that right? Hi, Shrappy. I played non-combatant characters once. I usually called out things while people were fighting. Heck yes. That's another one of those points we gotta make. Because it's really helpful to do that. Like, the goal isn't to be the best at combat, but to help your party mates do better at it. Like, that's a totally valid strategy. Yeah, my proposed team has 4 punchy characters, 2 riggers. I'm the only one who was interested in magic. Ooh, that does sound fun. I think I do a very good job of signposting things most of the time. Hey, you know, Deebs, if you feel like you're not good at signposting, a great thing you can do is just have them roll a check, you know, something perception based or something like that. And then when they roll, you could be like, aha, you notice this. And then you could just straight up tell them that thing that you feel like you didn't signpost very well or that they didn't pick up on. And then they can find it. And it's like, oh, I looked around and I found it. So that could be a good way to do that too. In my case, it's spelled in catalog, which gives you a great deal of information on the environment. Ooh. Hey, Blight. I don't think I understand the premise of what you're doing. So this is the question right now. That's right. Oh, I ran out of finger space. Oh no, on the other side of the skull. Is what are non-combat things you can do in combat to stay engaged? Either, and this is both as a player, what can you do? And as a GM, what can you give your players to do that don't want to participate in combat? That's what we're doing. Hey, Shrappy! Thanks for following along. I hope continue to entertain you. We do RPG Help Desk every Wednesday at this exact time. Spells which the environment can contribute, e.g. darkness, light, ice over spell I mentioned earlier. Absolutely. Silence, illusions. Oh my gosh, yes. Okay, we're gonna skip ahead a little bit because you mentioned those. So utility spells, things. All right. Big thing. What do you want to do? Okay, environmental factors. So dang, it's really whatever. Can you give them something to impact the fight in a way that helps? So like, can they, I ran a character, for an example, I ran a character who was in a sci-fi campaign that was the pilot. And that was like one of his main things was flying a ship. And he was also very social and he was not a combat character. So if combat was happening, be like, okay, well, what can I do in what I have in my suite of abilities to help them? So like, we're on a ship. All right. Can I get to the cockpit and start flying it? Can I stabilize the ship to help my party mates fight better, make it easier for them? Can I rock the ship to make everybody uneasy and try and give them an advantage by knocking people, you know, around? And that's directly within combat. You know, can I, from the cockpit, can I open and close doors automatically? Can I try and space some people? Can I corral them with environmental factors of like, oh, can I close these blast doors to force them to either waste time trying to get through them or go around the way I want them to go through the ship? So, you know, being aware of your environment. There was a I had that used against me when I was running a horror space game one shot, and there was a creature crawling around the ship that hatched from some eggs hidden behind the wall, and they started systematically, like, they were trying to find out where it was, and they used that strategy of using blast doors to shut off sections of the ship and then would be able to like search to find where it was and know like, okay, this area is clear, open it. Okay, we know it has to be in one of these areas, and like systematically move through the ship to find it, which was really cool that they did that. And they were very proud of themselves, and I felt very proud of them for ruining the cool things that I had in mind of this thing crawling around the ship. But they really liked it, so I'm on board with it. So yeah, is there, you know, can you drop a chandelier on someone? On the subject of utility spells, like, yeah, can you make the ground difficult to walk on? Can you use a magic wall to, you know, block someone from going a certain way? You can also just use some mechanical things to aid your teammates. If you're with someone that gets something, you know, if you're using a system, also if, you know, gives a flanking bonus. Just stand on the other side of an enemy someone's fighting, you'll give your teammate the bonus, assuming you're using a system that does something like that. And if they get, you know, extra damage or extra moves or something because they're involved in group tactics or flanking or something like that, you're really helping them out. It's kind of like spoilers if you haven't seen The Boys season 3. I'll try and be very vague, but there's a scene where a character has a choice. It's actually a really great scene. I think it's in the last episode. Character has a really great choice to either enter the fray to try and help, or like butt at doing something they know they shouldn't do, or be clever and do something to empower one of the people that's already there. And it's a really cool way to do that. And you gotta kind of think like that of, you know, well, what can I do to help someone directly without getting involved? All right, let me catch up on chat now. Spells that affect the environment contribute. Oh, darkness light. Yes. So like, can you know, does your party have dark vision? Awesome. Boom. Turn off all those lights. Super great. Pockets of darkness. Really great. Illusions, silence. Yeah, all those things. Incredibly helpful to disorient, confuse, or just put people at a disadvantage when trying to fight your party. That's incredibly helpful. And you do not have to fight unless someone is like, we're tired of you casting darkness, so we're gonna fight you. It was a Dark Ages game, and I was a priest. The mailed guys were with swords did the fighting. Yeah, that's what they do. They do the fighting. Be a priest. It's okay. I'm curious, what did you do as a priest in combat then? See, Deep says, I once set up a fight against an insane potion maker, and I'd given him a bunch of resistance stuff because of all the time spent doing potiony stuff, in hopes that the people I made less effective would start trying to use his potions against him. If I remember correctly, they took that more enthusiastically than anticipated, and ended up blowing up the whole room. That's great. Blowing up the whole room, pretty effective strategy. Also, something that came up a bunch before when talking about combat encounters, having a secondary objective can give someone something to focus on other than attacking. Absolutely. Is there a secondary objective? Secondary objectives are fantastic. I am a huge proponent of them. Sometimes I forget them, but they're incredibly useful. Yeah, if you are, you know, trying to get... let me start over. Think about why you're in combat. If you are... I know Discord is talking about Shadowrun. If you are breaking into a place to steal some data, and you get caught and security's coming after you, yes, you are in combat for breaking into this place, but you have a goal of not only surviving combat, but getting this data. So the person trying to get the data may have a series of WarioWare mini games or whatever mechanics they use to get to where the data can be hacked, gotten, whatever. Snag it off the system, find the right files, whatever it is, and then get out of there. So that would be a secondary objective. Also might be more complicated if you are being attacked. I would say it's hard enough trying to work on a computer with someone looking over my shoulder and judging me, let alone looking over my shoulder while trying to stab me. Make it much harder. There's a fight in Shadowrun Returns where there are foes which cannot be defeated with conventional arms, and the only way out is to have a Decker hack a door that you can run away. Exactly. That's a note I have right here, is one of the things you could do to aid your party mates. It's like, find a door. You know, can you get them an escape route? Because even if they, you know, are winning the fight, you might want to leave, or like things might start going bad really fast, or you just want to get back to the ship. Like, can you create an escape route for them? That's a really good way to help out. Can you warm the car up? You know, can you pull the car up to the door, or can you smash the car through the door, run over a couple people, get everybody in the car, and then back out the hole you just made? It's a good point, Deeves, e.g. reassuring someone, retrieving something, stopping someone from doing something outside of just killing them. Absolutely. The same character that I was talking about in the game that was the pilot had handcuffs, and that was like his main thing would be, if I got into combat, is to cuff someone and then either cuff a wrist to an ankle or cuff a, you know, part of them to a solid object and then leave. Because bump that, I didn't want to fight. That's dumb. Fighting is how you get hurt. Wasn't into that. But yeah, how can you aid a party mate? Can you retrieve something for them? Do they have a weapon, or do you have a weapon that you can give them? Like, oh, you've got grenades on you and this person's in a bind. Can you toss them a grenade? Can you give them a gun? Can you, you know, if they drop their weapon, spend your turn getting it back to them rather than them having to waste part of their turn to do it? If you're a cowboy, can you lasso someone who's engaged with someone else, another party mate, from a distance? There's also things you can do sometimes, like narratively, kind of like getting that information from the, you know, if you were trying to hack information, you were trying to get that out during combat and hack your computer or whatever you were doing. Is there something narratively you can learn and use to your advantage? Can you connect some dots on the type of people you are fighting? Like, oh man, they're wearing the same uniforms as these other people? Like, or, oh, I recognize that insignia. Or, you know, something that can connect them narratively to something else in the story. Hey, Crawdad, King of Mars. Crawdad, King of Mars says, if you're Iceman, you could freeze their feet to the floor. Oh, that's one of my favorites. I love the freeze. That was another, in our Arcana Involved, one of the powers of one of the classes, the witch class, was being able to freeze two objects together, or the floor. It was the same spell-like ability. And it was outstanding to get the jump on someone and then be like, I just froze your arrow to your bow while you had it knocked, so your bow doesn't work. Have fun with that. Or like, you know, freeze a sword in its hilt. Freeze their feet to the floor. Really great stuff. I know, like, another example, Dabarella in Adventurous Die has done that, where it's like, oh, we need an escape, and she'll use, while she'll probably survive combat, she knows the rest of us are in a bit of a spot. So using her big ice cream scoop to like freeze an area and build, I think she like froze part of a thing of the sewer water to freeze some, they weren't rats, but they were kind of ratty creatures things, and have them freeze and spot to give us a way to escape. It's a spell in Shadowrun for gluing someone to a surface. Freaking awesome. Gluing, incredibly useful. So useful. Fast acting glue. It's like jumping really far. Just always let it be an option. It's just called glue. Really not super glue. All right. That's just glue. I mean, that's straightforward. What is it? It glues? Call it glue. I mean, that makes sense. I think that was most of my notes on that. The freeze ray in Metroid be inspiration. Ooh, yeah. Freeze them in space and then jump on them for platforming. I actually really like the freeze ray in Metroid. I'm not really sure how it works. I guess if it freezes them in both time and space, so they like stay hovered, that's extra cool. What a powerful item. But that is good inspiration. I do like that. What do I have? I put some notes down just to make sure I didn't forget some stuff, because I really like this topic. I end up talking about this a lot. I've talked about it before here. I've talked about it elsewhere plenty of times. Yeah, it's so cool. It freezes at the quantum level, so it can't fall. That's science-ish. Yeah, exactly. Quantum freezing. You are adhered to your space in all 5 dimensions, including 2 you can't properly interact with, and that's why it looks like you're just frozen in space. That's how it works. Don't question it. Copy to be glue to. Ah, over on Discord. Right on, duct tape this time, no worries. With glue. Can I bring this over? Yes, I can. I could just bring this over and then show you glue. Also works keeping bumper cars, change in your pocket, and hats on your head. Nice. Super effective. I like that. Yeah, it's... Oh, what are my notes? I don't want to get too, like... I try to find a balance of getting excited and getting off topic and having some level of notes to stay on topic when I do these like this, but yeah, what can you do to help with, you know, your next move? So getting out, that's the thing you can do. Oh, are we just throwing in suggestions of what you do instead of combat? If you would like to, Blight, yeah, absolutely. If you have done or think, oh, you know, it'd be cool to do in combat instead of fighting, absolutely drop it in there. Would love to read it. Shreppy says glue them to a board. Have some handholds. They can bring them anywhere. Yeah. They just carry them around. Yeah, so what can you do in the environment to help? So, you know, Can you turn off the lights? Can you turn on lights? You know, can you block doorways, open doorways, make escape routes, cut off other routes, drop chandeliers, set some traps? Who knows? Is there anything you do directly with your party mates? Can you aid them in giving them items or something? Can you change? Oh, well, that's the environment. You're driving a spaceship. Can you rocket around? That's environment, whatever. Is there information you can get? Is there any spells or technology you can use to, like we were saying, offer, you know, make a door out of a wall or silence things? Ooh, one more note on this. But yeah, basically anything to do with help. All right, I'll go to my note after I read Blight's comment. I play talking characters a lot. In fact, I'm playing one with Crawdad, King of Mars, and last session the topic of poisonous gifted ham came up. I'm sorry, I'm gonna need a longer explanation on poisonous gifted ham. Hey Talia, how's it going? I like combats where there's puzzles, where there's a puzzle that's the real objective and the combat is there to add difficulty to the time pressure. Yeah, that's kind of like what we were talking about with secondary objectives, which honestly combat can be the secondary objective of a situation. I've done that in the Magical Girl anime campaign that I ran, where a lot of times when they fought a monster, most of the time the answer was not defeating them with, you know, their awesome Magical Girl powers, but figuring out how to stop this, you know, creature from wrecking shop and continuing to wreck shop. And so they would have to get, you know, they'd have to figure out what it was, because in that game all of the monsters were manifestations of 3 emotions, and it'd be the primary emotion, secondary emotion, and the tertiary emotion. And then the manifestation of that creature, what its goals were, how to defeat it, everything revolved around what it was constructed of. And so they would have to figure that out and then try things with, you know, trying to appease it and ease it with that. So like one was when they went into the like dimension where they had their powers, which was like a parallel world, it was flooding. And there was like constant rain and like tsunamis, and they had to like, you know, fight to not drown, and there's, you know, all sorts of stuff. It was really fun. And they could attempt to fight they eventually found the source of it, and it was like a figure that was crying, and all the water was coming from this figure. And they had to find out, you know, why this figure was sad, what they were sad about, or why they were crying. They found out it was sad. But what are they sad about? They were sad about, you know, like dying. It's like, okay, well, how do I comfort this person that is like overwhelmed with the anxiety and fear and uncertainty of death? And so it was more than just like beating this person into submission. And then once they learned that, they could, you know, stop the floods. So, and then the parallel dimension, so the floods from this person, figure, creature crying were affecting and causing floods in their real world as well. And then doing things like being able to, if they choose to fight within combat, give them information that allows them to learn what this thing is. So like if they chose, so they didn't fight that one, but another one that was like a big armored turtle thing that was basically immune to damage, and they had to, the whole way to get to it was just peeling it apart, and taking it apart piece by piece. Crawdad says, not sure who, not sure when, but somebody's getting some poisoned ham. Oh, hey, CJ Fox, bruh. Found the stream interesting. I love RPGs. Don't find decent people. But I don't find decent people when I think I treat myself differently. I'm not sure if I'm reading that correctly. But hey, CJ. I'm from Brazil. Folks here think it's like that. Don't know how to play well. Ah, that's rough. Yeah, like there's an etiquette to it that like some people don't understand, or there's also an etiquette of like playing in a way that people want to play, like, and that some people don't get that there's more than one way to play a game. Like some people play Mario Kart or Smash Brothers to be super competitive and like have a test of skill, like Casey does, and that's fine. But like not everybody wants that. I love playing stupid rules that are silly and fun, and like it's like that for RPGs as well. Or like when people are playing sports and some people like to trash talk and other people don't want to, and you don't want to assume that everybody wants to play it the same way that you do. So that's rough. I'm sorry. I hope you find some people to play with that play well. I know online games could be a help, finding them online, and like I don't know what the situation is with like local gaming stores and stuff, and like places like Meetup in Brazil. Those might be avenues. I'm curious because I've never been to Brazil, so I don't know what the scene is there. But also, hi. Most people are on Twitch, some are on YouTube, so over there on Trovo. If you have another one, you could join. I mean, you're welcome to stay on Trovo, but like, you'll probably be the only one. Talion says, yeah, combat is always more interesting when you have something else to think about besides just making enemies' numbers go down. Absolutely. If all you're dealing with is numbers going down or up, that's boring. I hate that. So I agree with you, Talion. Don't want to fight a gang leader or be known where we were going after him. So the idea of a poisonous ham, meat is a special thing in this world, then sending it off, heavily implying it was sent by a rival gang was an idea. Oh, that's delightful. Gonna make an R snack. You mark my words, R snack. That's funny, Blight. Also, every group plays differently. Some groups love the combat of tabletop RPGs. Others are entirely in it for the RP. And others still are into the puzzles and solving mysteries. Absolutely, Talion. I've played with people who, we had like a group of 6. 2 of them, all they wanted to do was combat. All they wanted to do was combat so they could fight things, so they could level up, so they could get more equipment, so they could fight harder. And it was fine, but that's not how like some of the other people wanted to play. And you have to either change your your perception on what you're going to do, or you can try and find a balance. So like with that group, we would generally have combat at least every other game. Not always super long, but like there would be combat fairly regularly to help satiate their bloodlust. And like it ended up working in that scenario where it's like they could go some time without fighting and appease the RP people, and the RP people, the roleplay people, can, you know, deal with some combat every other game or every game for a little while to appease them, and it worked out. But yeah, I've played with groups where it's like, oh, if you go 3 sessions without fighting anything, yeah, that's nothing weird about this at all. And also, like, not just combat versus RP, but like what kind of RP? Like, are you kind of what you were saying, Talion, where it's like, are you solving puzzles and mysteries? Like, are you uncovering a story? Are you building a story together versus uncovering something that's already there? You know, are you trying to play nice characters? Like, you're trying to do really cool, friendly things? Are you playing a bunch of jackasses that just want to go around getting their way the whole time? Like, that's all important to know and to, you know, incorporate and be aware of, and know that everybody wants the same thing, like that you're all having a good time together. Oh, hey, Rat Beach. Rat Beach says, I don't really mind straightforward combat, but would rather it be in service of the story, not just random encounters. Absolutely, I agree. I feel like combat without any narrative weight isn't fun. Like, combat for the sake of combat makes for just a boring time. If you threw a puzzle, if you just like threw a Rubik's Cube on the table and was like, we're not getting any further in the game until one of you solves this, like, but it has nothing to do with the game. Like, there's no Rubik's Cube puzzle, there's no like test of skill, there's no like timer going off that like this has to be solved before this timer or else, you know, Prince dies. Like, there's nothing grounding it to the story. That's how I feel about combat for the sake of combat. You've just thrown an element out there that isn't going to affect anything, and I don't find that fun. Like I said, some people just want combat and they're super excited about that. But I'm not one of them, and I think for the most part, I feel like even if you have characters that want combat, you will never be in a bad spot if you tie it into the narrative in some fashion. RPG Blight says, I really love low damage characters that have to use their wits, because unlike fighting, I have to actually try to be clever. Dice can't save a stupid plan. That's very true. Dice cannot save a stupid... Well, dice sometimes can save a stupid plan. If you have a dumb plan but roll really well, maybe fate just aligned that a plan that shouldn't have worked ended up working because of things outside of your control. But most of the time, dice cannot save a stupid plan. And also, yeah, dice can just aid you in fighting. Like, if you're gonna fight, the dice at best can make you, you know, miss. That's not too bad. In planning, the dice can actively, you know, cut off ways of escape or make a situation worse or something like that. And yeah, I feel like in combat you can be clever, but it's not always conducive to the system. Where I feel like anytime I've ever seen anyone be clever in like a D&D game, like specifically D&D system, the GM had to house rule it. So it like the system was not conducive to having clever combat. The system is conducive to, you know, you roll a die and it hits for this much damage or it misses. Hey, Honey Bunny, just got back from the store. On the way, there was a woman stopped me saying the police were looking for a flasher in the area. Oh no. And I did DC police, but no flasher. Was it you? Less than 2 centimeters. Let's see. Italian says, random question. When you choose spell/abilities for Grinderman, do you choose what's thematically appropriate for his character and the setting, or do you pick what you know will be useful? Oh, I love that question. Is this a confession? Hey, true Mandalorian. Oh, we hit 100 messages. Woo! So, for Grinderman, it's a mix of what I do for every other game, really. Unless it's like super themed. Where it's a mix of what I would think the character would use, which is me going outside my comfort zone. A little bit of player knowledge. Do I know the system? And what do I know is useful? Like, I know if you have access to a spell that makes you jump further, to have it equipped. That's incredibly useful. Have at least one high damaging, low effort spell for, you know, the situations that you need damage. You know, a little bit of that, and then also mix that in with what's helpful for the party. So like Grinderbin has enlarge person, or enlarge reduce person, whatever that spell's called, pretty much because I felt like at some point I would probably use it on Dabarella to be like, oh, what's scarier than a giant cat? How about a size larger giant cat? Boop, go at it. And fun fact, I have not used that spell a single time in 2 seasons of that game. But yeah, so like, what do I think would be useful? So like with the alchemist abilities, is I found some cool ones, and I was thinking about going full items because Grinderbin loves magic items. And I could take magic item multiple times, but then I was like, well, what's helpful for the group? And that's why I have the little stickers that are like, hey, this is a bonus to your AC, this is a bonus to your attack and damage, because I knew that I had party mates that liked doing that stuff, liked keeping their blood mostly on the inside, and so I wanted to get something that aided them. So I took like one magic item, and then I got the other ones to boost them. And then I have like, what other spells do I have? You know, stuff that's a mix of that. So yeah, pretty much trying to think of, usually try and start with what does what would the character use? What kind of sort of spells would they spend the time learning? Second being, you know, what's useful for the party? Again, RPGs are group storytelling. I want everybody to have a good time. What's something that I can do to aid my party mates? And then 3, what Jesse thinks would be fun based on knowledge. That one's harder to put in third once I know a system better, because then I'm just thinking about, oh, I know this spell is OP for its level because it does more damage than this, so this thing, or like, oh, I've seen this combos with, and it's harder to start pulling that information away from the fun stuff. Yeah, mix of that, and I do that in every game. It's like, you know, try to lead with the character, but not always, doesn't always happen. Let's see. I love those little stickers. Oh, I'm glad. That was just one of those dumb things that happened, and then people were like, those stickers, they're great. And I was like, I didn't think anybody would give a single hoot about those stickers, but I'm glad that they're a running gag. Next time Mortimer starts to come up with a really terrible plan, just cast Reduce on him and put him in a little sack for a few minutes. Yeah. Just be like, shh. Boop. Be like that scene in Willy Wonka where they like pick him up, the little kid, after he got sent over the airwaves, and like put him in a purse. Oh, the other thing for this, before we move on to the next question, is what system are you using? If you're using like, you know, something like Pathfinder or D&D, you're gonna have to house rule it. Like, those games are built for combat and systematic stat-based combat, and if you want to do something other than that, you're gonna have, like, as a GM, you'll have to account for it and bend some rules and make some new rules and break some rules. And as a player, you're gonna be in a bad spot, because if the GM hasn't done that, then you might find yourself being way underpowered, because while someone can hit something for, you know, 10 damage, you're going to spend 2 turns setting up a chandelier to drop on them, and it's only going to do 5 damage because the GM isn't able to instantly and very understandably come up with stats in a very stat heavy game system just come up with, this is how much damage it should do, and this is how it should work, and this is how, because if they make it too powerful, and that's a mistake on the fly that they do, then they've just given you a huge advantage over everybody else, and that's not cool. And so a lot of times it tends to err on the side of caution, which ends up making you less useful than everybody else because you're trying to be creative, which is a real shame. Less so with other systems like Fate, Savage Worlds, was it Powered by the Apocalypse, where you have things that are more connected rather than just having like your HP and your stats and your everything's kind of segmented in its own way. In those games, it's more fluid and everything kind of connects. And if you're playing Fate and you bother someone enough to give them a point of mental damage, that can, affect their total health state. So, really useful stuff. So the system matters. The system matters. The system matters. Discordia says, I picked a spell called Fashion and another called Makeover. One changes and repairs clothes, the other disguises people. Seems handy for a heist crew. Oh my gosh, that sounds super handy for a heist crew. I think I would have to just pick a spell named Fashion anyway, but that sounds incredibly useful. Yeah, that's just straight up like, and we're new people. Whole new outfit. Whole new face of makeup. Usually pretty good plans, you don't have to roll for them. Sometimes they are good plans. Sometimes it's like, you don't have to lie. It's physically possible to just not make up something. Hello, my friend ran a poorly balanced Pathfinder 2e module that was way too hard. I think everybody died at least once. Oh man, that's tough. I like Pathfinder 2e. But yeah, that's rough. What'd they die of? Just was like combat too scary? Like just things whapped too hard? We cast both together, get a whole makeover montage. God, I hope so. That should be in the rules. Not the way the spell works in Shadowrun. Instead of spell slots, every time you cast a spell, you roll a pool of your casting attribute and willpower to resist drain. Ooh, I like the sound of that. I really enjoy non-spell slots systems. I find spell slots to be fine, but not super creative. Like the idea of a diminishing resource is fine, but not as fun as like a drain mechanic or how Mage does it, where you have to roll based on the spheres of magic you are using, and like how it's not called grody or grotesque, it's how obvious you're being, but there's a fancy white wolf word that they use for it. Like, they love using those big words and those weird words. They're like macabre and like lycanthropy. They love those words. But there's a thing, it's not gauche, but it's basically like how obvious you are with the spell. And the more hidden it is, the better your chances are of pulling it off. But then the effects are lessened versus doing like something outlandish that's obviously magic. And then like you stand a better chance of getting noticed by, it's not the gods of magic, but it's like whatever holds magic together in that world. And if they see you being obvious in that way, then they may come down and smite you or do something that hinders you. So it's pretty cool. And so it gives you a nice balance of like, how extreme do you want to go? Or what is it? Fate. There's one system where it's like you can, bump your score by getting a a negative. So like if you miss by 1, you could be like, oh well, I'll spend a point to increase it by 1 to make it a success, but the GM gets control over something about it. So success with a cost. Deep says his instinct is to lie even when it isn't the smartest thing to do. That's true. Rapid says, I can't find the name of the spell again, but it was like a long distance healing spell that would heal anyone holding the sigil. So I had my hippie cleric make everyone friendship bracelets. Oh, that's a great idea. I love that. That's really smart. I really like the idea of that. Anything with the sigil. Because I love targeted spells like that. Where you can find a way to specifically target things in an area so you don't just heal everything. That's really cool. Discordia says if your roll doesn't reach the drain of the spell, then you take stun damage. Oh, that sounds awesome. Italian says we almost party wiped to 3 bushes. Somebody got bottlenecked in a basement by some rabid dogs. Somebody got one-shotted by a trap. Wow. Were you like level 1? Penta says, what is your favorite setting to play? Honestly, I don't have one. I honestly don't. I love so many settings. I love space horror. I love SCP. I love low fantasy. I enjoy high fantasy. I love space trash sci-fi. I like magical girl anime. Like I just love, I think whatever setting best suits the story and the narrative, then that's the best setting for it. I really do not have a preference. I love them all. Well, I guess not all. There's probably some settings I really don't like. But yeah, I just want something that works well together. Like I really don't have a favorite. Everything's great. Maybe that's a cop-out answer, but there's just so many good things. I wouldn't want to limit myself. So my favorite one is the one I'm playing and having a good time with, and then that'll change as soon as I play another one and I'm having a good time with it. Yeah, I like the idea of alternative systems where you have the option to like push yourself too far. Absolutely. In Mutants and Masterminds, it's a superhero system. There's a cool mechanic that's specifically designed to allow you to push yourself further at a cost. And it gives you those big like superhero moments, but then you have to deal with the aftermath. And it's a pretty cool mechanic. Maybe it'll work out, maybe it'll just hurt yourself. Yeah, absolutely. Discordia says every 3 stun damage imposes a 1 die penalty to rolls. I have a stun track of 12. At 12 I pass out. Ooh, that's really cool. Paradox? It might be called Paradox, Discordia. It's Paradox is what you gain, I think. But there's a term that they use for like being obvious. That's bad. Don't be obvious. But I don't remember what that is. You should have become Bush. You gotta become Bush. That's the #1 strategy. We were level 3, and the only reason we were able to finish the module at all was that the DM started nerfing the combat encounters pretty hard. Wow, that's wild. True Mandalorian says, oh, rando question. How's your head? My head is good. I'm doing a lot of talking, and my throat is dry, so I'm drinking a bunch of water. But my head is much better. My head, I would say, is fine now. I mean, as fine as it always is. I feel like my brain got some issues, but like no headache. So that's cool. Thank you for checking up on me. I appreciate that, Mandalorian. I know that's why I wasn't here Monday, right? Yesterday was my partner. Yeah, or I was here Monday, I just shortened it. Mage the Awakening uses subtle and gross. Maybe it was subtle and gross. I know subtle was 1. Maybe it was gross. All right, I am going to use the facilities, powder my nose, if you will, and then we'll move on to the next question. unless you all start talking about stuff and I end up talking about that for a while. But in lieu of that, we'll go to the next question. But for now, we're gonna come back. Wait screen. We're gonna go back to this delightful skeleton. All right. Jesse has nice hair. Aw, thanks, perspicacious. Quick, let's talk about Jesse while it's gone. You know, I can see the chat when I get back, American Fear. I guess unless you're in a Discord call with someone. But in that case, you can just talk while I'm here. I just can't hear you. Also, hey, American Fear. And hey, perspicacious. Good, happy to hear. Thank you. Deep says, I looked at Mutants and Masterminds a while back. I'm not sure how I feel about the system as a whole, but I like the sound of that mechanic. I think it's better for storytelling and more fun to be able to try and force extra bursts of power rather than just like, sorry, out of spell slots, I can't do anything. Yeah, that's another thing I hate with spell slots. It's just, you're just, wait, I'm quieter now? Am I quieter to everybody else? All I've done is unmute myself, so I shouldn't be any quieter. Let me know if I sound quieter to anybody else. Yeah, it's a good. You guys pretty quiet to me. I can't say no. Why? But how am I quiet to you? My levels are so high. I guess everybody on YouTube and Twitch just tries to make their levels hit 0 all the time, which is peaked. You're not supposed to get there. I guess that's the old ways. I just gotta forget about it. I gotta forget about it and just be like, oh, you ready for this? I'm about to get loud. Here's what I'm supposed to sound. Oh wow, that didn't even turn up my that didn't turn me up at all. Dang. Not nearly as quiet as Marty. That's fair. I don't know, apparently it's always only me. You've always been really quiet to me on my home PC. Gotta turn my speakers way up. I'm so confused. How? I want to know. All the escape spheres are relatively quiet compared to other videos. I think people must be just jacking themselves up to max dB. You're not quiet at all when I listen on headphones. Use headphones at work. Don't know why it's different between headphones and speakers, so that's... I don't know. I'm not good enough to understand why that happens. Dang. All right. Audio is a mystery to me. I love audio, but I'm not going to pretend like I understand the whole thing. Mutants and Masterminds. Yeah, I played a game of it, and I would say I do like the system. And I think that mechanic is really fun. It's not the best. It is infinitely better than someone going, let's hack 5e to play superheroes. That's garbage. If you've done that, I'm sorry. I don't mean to make fun of you, but don't do that. Just don't. So it's way better than that. I don't have a better superhero game though to like suggest other than use lexicon, but like Necessary Evil, which is the Savage Worlds supplement that focuses on superheroes, is pretty fun. Not quite as unique because Savage Worlds is a universal system, so you can use it for superheroes and space operas and fantasy and whatever. So Mutants and Masterminds offers some very specific superhero things which are really cool. One thing that I found out which was weird is you can't make like certain low-powered super abilities. Like some of them you can. I wanted the ability to fly, but I was trying to make a low-powered superhero. And the character I had in mind is a character that I made called Leverage, and which is a character I pulled from a story that I wrote that no one's read because I'm not published, but it's there. Superhero who her powers are she can stop or redirect kinetic energy that comes close to her. So the idea being that she could, you physically can't hit her because she can stop kinetic energy before it hits her. And I was trying to play around with like not at like an earlier stage of her life where it's like, oh, she can't just totally stop it, but she can manipulate it some, and that was not in the rules. What was in the rules was being immune to a type of damage, and kinetic damage was one of them. So there is some really cool robust things where it's like lightning damage, kinetic damage, poison damage, stuff like that. And I just spent a certain amount of points and I was like, well, I guess she's just immune to kinetic damage now. Okay, like you can't hit me with a car. Cool. But like that was it. There was no like damage reduction or chance of miss. It was all or nothing. And then some things were more loose, like I gave her the ability to fly because the idea is like that she can jump and then as she's falling reverse the kinetic energy and start going up. Then she can only fly as fast as like if she falls from a greater distance, she'll be able to use more of it to fly faster. But if she just jumps and like flies, she'll just kind of be like, huh, and fly slower. And that let me play around a little bit with that, with like different fly speeds. So I would say it's fun. But you do have to learn a new system, which I don't think is all bad. But like, oh my gosh. Rule books are the absolute worst. I would say don't judge a system by its rule book, which is a terrible thing to say. You should be able to judge a system by its rule book. It's its rule book. Its rule book should teach you how to play the doggone game. But it doesn't. Rule books are mostly poorly written in a lot of ways. It's very frustrating. And as someone that like writes rule books for their own stuff, I am trying to learn how to counteract this and do it correctly, but woof. It's hard. It's not done well because it is very difficult. It's really hard to take the walls and walls of text about how things are supposed to work and then mentally convert it into what it'd be like to play the game. Absolutely. That is very much what it's like. It's very, very hard. It's also really hard because you're dealing with non-linear progression. Like, it can tell you if you have 100 things you need to learn about the game. It has to present them in some sort of order, but it might not be the order that you need that stuff in. So like, just for example, combat. Like, it's going to tell you open a chapter about combat. Cool. You have grappling in mind. Where's that in combat? Like, it's not start combat, grappling. Perfect. You got what you wanted. It's like start combat, branching paths. Here's how to do range combat, melee combat, defensive combat, spell combat, technology combat, opposing combat, grappling. Well, what's the scenario? Like, there's all sorts of spider webbing connections that is very hard to get across as linear text, where you are doing something that's like fluid and open, and you don't have a sort of tutorial like you have in video games where, you know, when you boot up a game, you're not expecting to know how the parry mechanics in Dark Souls work. You know, you get to a point where you've learned the sword. Okay, you've learned the shield. Okay, well, now you have a prompt on how to block. Oh, okay, I've learned this, and it walks you through it. That's not a thing in tabletop RPGs. Maybe it should be. Maybe that's part of the solution. We should take pointers from the other game design that does it better than us sometimes. But yeah, that's very, very hard. Rose says, having never played, it sounds like it's done purposefully so that it's open to interpretation. To a point, yes. But if that's the case, I would say too much. It's done with too much interpretation in mind, that it actively hinders it. It also reinforces familiarity. If reading the book is difficult or doesn't really give you what you need to know, then when you play with people, you're going to play what you're familiar with. And that's probably always going to resort back to D&D due to market saturation, the money of Hasbro, and longevity. It's been around the longest. Deep says, even for something really simple, I tend to have a hard time imagining how I would actually play until I'm actually doing it. I do the same thing, Deeps. I really... I think that's one of the reasons why the D&D works as well as it does, is because a lot of it is combat focused, and it is fairly straightforward in like, oh, do you want to, you know, with like with Gridman, so the Artificer cannon, I'm going to make a cannon. It lasts this long. It can do one of these three things, and I choose which thing it does while it's out, when it comes out. Like, that's fairly straightforward. it has this much HP, it has this much AC, it does this amount of attacks per round. But then that's less conducive when you want to be like, all right, well, I want to drop a chandelier on someone, when everything has such set damage and area and like set rules that's like, oh, I don't know, how much damage does a chandelier do? Certain games have tried to fix that. I know in the Star Wars D20 game, they had rules for like how heavy an object was for when you force throw it, and the damage linked to it by that, but those numbers got wonky real fast. And yeah, trying to just read something and imagine how it would play is very difficult. I would like to find a way to make it better in text, but I feel like really the best way to learn tabletop games is to play them and to interact with them and have someone who already knows teach you. Which is a problem that video games had early on, and they got past that. Now we have, robust tutorials, and we have semi-unified controller schemes and things like that really help new people pick it up, where, NES, SNES, those generations, a huge part of your knowledge base came from being taught by someone else. And I find that really interesting to look at new players now, like new video game players now, and see what stuff doesn't just instantly click because they don't have that knowledge base of like, well, yeah. Like an example I tend to use probably too often is Steam vents. If you were playing a game in the 90s or the 2000s and you saw like steam coming out of something, oh, you jump on that and it'll blow you upwards. Because every game did that. Not every game, but so many games did that. And it just became like shorthand. Like there was no tutorial for it. There was no explanation. There was no, oh, you gotta, hey, I wonder what this is over here. I bet that could, be powerful enough to blow me skyward. It was just a thing that people did and expected it to be known. And I feel like that's still where tabletop RPGs are. And that is a shame. And I think ultimately hurts the hobby as a whole. Discord says, yeah, Shadowrun rulebook is a mess. Oh yeah, I've tried to play Shadowrun and read the rulebook and was like, haha, what? I had no clue what I was doing. I tried so hard and man, just oof. It is not well put together, and it's a lot of text and tables and like some cool pictures, but like the pictures don't help. I think one thing that might be really helpful in the tabletop RPG rule space is infographics. So like things like flowcharts and a way to interact with information in a more conducive way of going back for information. So like if I wanted to learn about combat rather than just 3 pages of walls of text broken up by some cool art, could I have a few flowcharts of like combat starts? Okay. Or like you start combat. Okay, boom. First thing, what are you gonna do? Magic. Here's what you have to do. Melee. Here's what I'm gonna do. Ranged. Here's what I gotta do. Like, okay. And then when I can start with, okay, well, what if I want to be a ranged person? Okay, well, combat ranged. Oh, here are my options. Oh, well, okay. And I continue down the flowchart, and it's like, I don't really like this option. What were the other ranged options? And I can immediately go back and kind of look through. So I feel like things like that, where information isn't walls of text, could really help. Unfortunately, a pleb like me can make a wall of text that gives you everything you technically need. However, a pleb like me cannot make a beautiful and functioning infograph, because that is a whole nother skill set. So it is way harder to do that, which is probably why it's not done very often. Also, maybe it's a terrible idea and I'd actually try it and be like, this is dumb. Who would ever pay attention to flowcharts? But yeah, ultimately, shortened version of that story. Walls of text do not equate to how the game is going to play. Because if that, it makes every game that you read feel like, well, is this going to play any different than this other game that I read that was just a wall of text? When in actuality, those games probably do play very differently. But you wouldn't know that because the only interaction you have with them is the same wall of text you get from everything else. All right, I'm done griping about that. As someone who loves flowcharts, a lot of people don't consider flowcharts that helpful. I'm glad we have a shared love for flowcharts, Talion. I think flowcharts are outstanding. Truly beautiful things. Is this a music that ends Cowboy Bebop or something? That's what it sounds like. Penta says, sorry, noob question. Never be sorry about a noob question. Love noob questions. But other than the setting, what is the difference about other games aside from D&D? It sounds like you're not very keen on D&D. Yeah, I'm not very keen on D&D. So one of the things that's very different is what the focus is. So D&D is focused on combat, and that make that very clear in the rules, because if you look at a character class and you look at what they get every level, it is overwhelmingly combat-based abilities. You get a more powerful attack. You get a second attack. You can get, more sneak damage. You can get this new ability to make you do a thing. And so pretty much everything focuses around combat, with a few exceptions. So like it's very combat focused, and it's not as robust or fun when trying to actually play by the rules doing other things, where but it plays sort of like I don't know, sort of like a war game, like a I don't want to say baby's first Warhammer, but like kind of like that in a way that's not insulting. Simplified grid-based rules that you can measure out and understand what's going to happen within reason, and then the dice rolls add a level of uncertainty and randomness, versus something like well, Discord, I just mentioned VTM, so like Vampire the Masquerade or World of Darkness, where there is combat, but it's very much about social interaction. Like characters get a lot of stuff that is utility based as they level. So like if you want to be better at driving, if you want to be better at lock picking, you want to be better at deception, things that you can use fluidly both in and out of combat. And then you also have generally a suite of powers. So like in Vampire, if you're a Malkavian, what is it? Obfuscate, which is, the ability to be hidden. They also have a thing called Demontation, which is the ability to mess with other people's minds. And how you want to play determines which of those you put more points into to develop them further, and how you use them. You could use Demontation in combat, but you could also use it. Aspects dominate Obfuscate nowadays. Oh, well, they don't have Demontation anymore. I guess that probably got rolled into Dominate. So like Dominate being able to use, dominate the mind, or like, control someone, influence them, or, cause them to hallucinate. That was a fun one. I love that one. That was an old Demontation. And so it plays very differently because it's not combat focused. You also don't have the same sort of, with D&D you have HP as your pretty much main source of physical accountability. You get hit with something, you take so many ouch points. Depends on how ouch it was. It ouched you really bad, that's 10 ouch points. And then you have a total of 30 HP, so you can only take 3 more of those ouches. Where in something like World of Darkness, or specifically Vampire the Masquerade, you have, okay, you have HP, yes, but you can recover HP because you're a vampire. But then there's also like aggravated damage. So like if someone gets you with a wooden stake, that's going to hurt, you're not going to recover as fast. Or fire, that's going to hurt, you're not going to recover as fast. You also have willpower. You're a vampire. You always have this bloodlust somewhere in your mind, and as you use your willpower, you become more unhinged. But you can use your willpower to do more things, but you have to counter that with, spending it or keeping it. You have a certain amount of blood points to use your powers. There's all these nice, intricate things that have to do with your nature as a vampire that play into more than just, when you get hurt, you take 10 ouch. It can affect your rolls. If you get hurt enough, it starts taking away from what you can do and makes it more difficult because you're so wounded or you're so unhinged. So it plays very differently in the mechanics of it. But you wouldn't know that from looking at the wall of text that is its rulebook versus the wall of text of another game's rulebook. Where, again, to use video games as an example, it's much easier to look at something like, what was that game that Casey was playing for Hidden Gems? Unsold. And be like, oh, it's frantic, fast, reactionary combat. Like, oh, okay, I see how this is played. I understand it to an extent. I like that. Versus, Stardew Valley, where you're like, it's a farming sim. If you just read the rules, they may not look all that different. It would be some stats, some numbers, some things you do. Stardew Valley has combat, so yeah, that would still be in there too. But like, how the actual game plays, vastly different. I don't know why I use 2 games that I haven't played as examples, but that's where we are today. So there we go. So yeah, they do play different. Does that answer your question on how they play different? It's a weird thing to try to explain versus experience. Kind of like with video games, if you were like, what do you mean Mario plays different than Silent Hill? Don't you use a controller for both? Like, the stick on the left moves your character. It's like the same thing. The little buttons do the thing at the prompts. But it's like, no, they're vastly different. But explaining that can sometimes be hard. So let me know if that even semi answers your question, or if you want to like piggyback onto that, or if you're like, oh my gosh, please stop talking about this. It's amalgam power with dominate. Oh, okay. Hallucinate are now under chemistry, presence plus obfuscate. Oh, okay. Well, I had another question prepped, but we only have like 15 minutes left, so I don't know if I have enough time to discuss that one. And I'll just have to save it for another time when I do these questions. I'll never know if I answered that question for Penta. Penta might not even be here anymore. All right, I got 15 minutes, so I am gonna try and go for this. So here's the next question. Oh, I hear. Oh, you hear. Oh, that's the wrong thing. Well, I had a thing up, but I don't need more. Where'd it go? Ah, okay. Found it. But yeah, Pens, I was just asking if I answered that question for you. Or if you have a piggyback on that question. Boop. Oh, boop. And boop. There's the other question I have. Prepped. All right. So my other question I had, or another question, there's still more. What are some ways a GM can adapt if players break a quest line, say murdering the big bad early, or not saving anyone or not saving someone in time? No, those comprehensive answer. Thanks. I'm not sure I would call it comprehensive, but I'm really glad that you called it comprehensive. So thanks. Again, if you need more details or whatever, just say so. I would say for what are some things you can do if they sequence break your story. Oh, actually, we're gonna forget that one. We gotta start with this. So, improv rule, yes and. Really, really useful in RPGs. Really, 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 really useful. It really, really does help. I highly recommend it. You should use it. So the idea being, okay, this happened. Cool. Don't try and stop it. Just go, awesome. Because this happened, what will happen next? And on top of that, similar to and yes, is if this, then what? So like, okay, big bad is dead. If this happened, big bad is dead, then what? What are the repercussions of this? And think about what you had built them up to, what you had built them from, what their connections were. How would that affect things? Because they shouldn't be a vacuum. Like, they shouldn't just exist in their own pocket and then when they're gone, nothing changes. And if you did have them like that, start expanding. Like, try and think about, okay, well, what's a thing that they had influence over? Who did they have contact with? In that regard, everything I'm going to talk about after this is related to basically yes and if this, then what? So then our factor is, what is your goal? If your goal was to create a storyline where the big bad is, forces the protagonist to make some sort of hard choice, and the big bad gets murdered early, so big bad can't do that anymore. Okay, your goal is still to make the players have to make a very difficult choice. Now that this person has been removed, how could you still move forward with that using this now dead big bad as some sort of propellant towards that new angle of how that's going to happen? So know what your goal is and try to move towards it. So you might be like, oh, well, that villain was actually a minion of another big bad. You could pull one of those. You can have it so the big bad getting knocked out just created a power vacuum. And here's a lesson on just killing the head of the snake doesn't mean the snake dies. Surprise, it's a Hydra. And so, someone they didn't know is now rising to power and is going to take over whatever the big bad's thing was. It could result in a bigger problem. okay, this big bad sure was big bad, but like was also the, you know, main source of food or oil or something for another village, and now they don't have that, and now they're suffering. Or they had some political ties, or they had something, they had some leverage over royalty in the area, and now the big bad is gone, and so the royalty in the area is like, oh, the one person that had the blackmail on us is dead, so like, let's be tyrants, who could stop us? And like, they start becoming horrible, or more horrible, eat the rich. You know, so there's things you can work off of that. You could just do something fun, like poison pill. What is poison pill? Do something fun, like after they kill the big bad, have them receive a gift basket in the mail from the big bad rivals saying, thanks, you really did me a solid here. And now they have a new person they got to worry about. Or you could do something fun where it's like, oh, someone, like the big bad, unbeknownst to them, had information, and someone wanted the big bad dead and hired a hitman. And then the party came in and killed the big bad before the hitman, but the hitman saw it. And now there's like this, you know, the party then becomes this infamous group of like, oh my gosh, these assassins murdered this person. It was wild. I saw it. I heard about it, whatever. And they become infamous as assassins. And that could also draw attention from the law of like, oh, we're going to arrest you for assassination. We have things confirming that this person had a hit on them, and that the assassin was supposed to show up at this time, blah, blah, whatever, however you want to spin it. And now they're on the hook for it. You know, you could do something extra fun like that. Depends on how, you know, silly or whatever you want to get. Discovery says it's where you set up something to go off when you die. Oh, the dead man switch. Yeah. Like leak information. Yeah. So like I now I know what you're talking about. I know it as dead man's switch. Dead man's switch. Where it's like at 2 o'clock every day, you have to flip a switch to keep an email from going out. And the day you don't hit that switch, you are assumed dead, and then all the emails go out. Deep says, I may have missed you already saying this, but the big bad was never actually the big bad at all. Wahaha. Yeah. Big bad was actually a minion for someone else, or Patsy, or paid actor. You know, that could be a fun one. Just like really they were just someone who needed a gig, had a whole story built up around them, paid by someone else to act that way, and then the party came and slayed them. That'd be fun. Didn't save someone in time is the other example here that they offered. Yeah, absolutely. So like you could have, depending on who the person is, but let's say, you know, the person they don't save in time is connected their family to someone that's, you know, in the village, town, city, space station, whatever, that the PC's local, that they frequent. And now people are looking at them differently, and they're mad at them, or they're upset at them, or they're, you know, don't respect them anymore, or like they're not giving them the deals that they used to give them at the shops, or that they're actively hostile, that, you know, there's a consequence for that. Deep says, I really love the idea that there's a bigger, badder group that was being kept in check by this big bad, and they send a gift basket for getting them out of the way. Yeah. Wouldn't that be fun? Just get an edible arrangement from like, you know, freaking Agent 47, or like the president of Zimfuwa Fuwa or whatever. I don't know. Just make up a name of a place and be like, haha. Thanks for taking care of my problem. I think that'd be really fun. Talion says most of these ideas also work for moving the plot forward after the story is completed as planned. Also very true. Taking excuse me, taking something that's happened within the game and expanding on it. Exactly, Talion. Really good way to keep the story going, or starting a new story, keeping the adventures going. This wine and cheese is way fancier than anything our friends could afford to send us. Yeah. Be like, this elven wine is 500-year-old bourbon barrel. Like, aged for 500 years. Who's put that in the Discord where they were talking about wine that was aged 100 years or something? So like there would only be like 2 bottles left after 100 years because it would evaporate or the barrel would soak it in. Chateau cyanide. All right, it's 2 minutes out, so this is going to be the end. We'll talk about cheese and wine baskets for 2 minutes. Thank you, Blight, for subscribing today. Thanks, Honey Bunny, for the raid, and thanks, Shrappy, for following along. Also, I set this up. Hang on. Get ready to fly, everybody. I set this up. This is a thing now. It updates. Also, I set this as goal. Just so I'd have a thing up there. I didn't tell it what the goal was. I don't know what 1 is. Was 1 new follower? 1 subscriber? It says 1 now, and it was at 0. And I didn't set it for anything. So I don't know what it says the 1 thing is. But apparently it happened. I just wanted to put something there. And I was like, whatever, we'll think of a goal. Let's see if it goes up. Ah, Deebs gifted a community sub. Thank you, Deebs. I appreciate that. Let's see if it goes up. Nope. Maybe it takes a minute to update. I don't know. I know the one on the Escapist takes like freaking about 10 minutes before it goes up, because someone during Hidden Gems gave it a donation to make it $69.69, and it took forever for the thing to update. So see if it goes up. Maybe it's followers. Maybe it is. Maybe if I go, it's via Streamlabs. Let me go there and see if I can. Oh, well, doing that twice. All right. Or no, it was Stream Elements Labs. I don't remember what it was. Hang on, I can find out. Properties. It is Streamlabs. Okay. I was right. Then I doubted myself. Oh, I think it is set to followers. That would be my guess. I think it is set to followers. And it's not in the main. Oh, I can manage themes? Oh, I can change its theme. Oh, man. Or it can crash on me. Ooh. Create widget theme? No, I just want to change it. All right, I'll deal with that later. Oh, this has a bunch of stuff. Ooh, this is not what I need to be doing while I'm live on stream, but okay. All right, thanks everybody. Y'all are the best. Thanks for giving out a gift sub, Deeps. I appreciate that. That's real sweet of you. Very, very sweet. I hope today was fun. I'm good. I hope I can get someone on next week to chit chat about random RPG stuff. I guess not random RPG stuff. We'd have a topic, but you know. Thanks for streaming. Welcome, Honey Money. Thank you for streaming earlier. Did I join right at the end again? Hey, Larson, you did join right at the end. I am closing up shop. The VOD is there, but yeah, I'm sorry. I am leaving. Well, Larson, who do you want me to raid now that you're here? Where can I send you? Who are you going to go to anyway? And I'll send everybody there. Actually, love listening to Tabletop RPG Talk as always. Thanks, Deeps. Appreciate it. V, is V on? Okay, I'll go to V. Do you want me to go to V? Just say it without a question mark, and I will go for it. You're welcome, Discordia. Thank you. You had such insightful things to say. I really appreciate it. You have cool tabletop RPG conversation things. Go to V. Do it. There we go. Enthusiasm. I love it. V is RPing Cyberpunk 2027 character in Cyber. Oh, cool. I like the sound of that. All right, well, let's do it then. Oh gosh. Sorry for that very loud thing. Pink and Murder? Is that her name? Is her name Pink and Murder? Pretty good name, to be honest. I like Pink and Murder as a name. Wasn't that loud? Okay, it was for me. I'm glad it wasn't for everybody else. Nearly blasted my eardrums out. No, it's Cindy. Oh, okay. All right. All right. Cool. Tomorrow night, I'm going to be playing Mortuary's Assistant with Blight at 6:30 Eastern, so you can check that out. Cindy's nuts. Both of these. And so you should check that out. It should be fun. I'm really looking forward to that game. I hope I see you there, and if not, then I hope you're enjoying whatever it is you're doing. Take care, everybody.